Anyways, thank you very much again, everyone, for joining us tonight. We are here tonight because of the book launch of Business of Freelancing, and therefore we have a very special panel discussions. And as you know, we'll be talking to you everything you need to know about freelancing. More people are actually interested in this unique industry, especially the younger generation who are looking for more freedom and creativity in their profession. But very often they don't know really where to start because not many people have shared their experiences about this industry. So this is why we are all here together tonight. We would like to take this opportunity to offer some advice to those of you who are interested in becoming a freelancing professional, and we would like to offer you some tips on how to kickstart your freelancing career. And for tonight, we have three very special speakers. First of all, meet Pamela. Say hi, Pamela.
Hi everyone. Thank you for your invitation.
She is a veteran in digital marketing and content development, and she also runs her own coaching business. And we also have Wei Ring. Wei, say
Hello.
hi.
Hi, everyone.
So, Wing is the author of Tales from a Tiny Room, which the New York Times best-selling creator, there you go, creator David Mack called a charming book of original stories. Wings contributed to publications such as Infinite World magazines, the Journal of Southeast Asian Speculative Fiction. He also ran his own podcast called Ghost Maps. Last but not least, we got Jayce Tham. Say hi, Jayce.
Hi everyone. I think you can see my name. I'm the only one who so yeah, doesn't feel embarrassed, right? To put out the name big. Sorry about that, guys.
Oh, it's fine.
Jayce is the author of Business of Freelancing and the co-founder of CreativesAtWork. So before we start, there are a few do's and don'ts during this panel discussion. So we would like to ask all of you to perhaps maybe can switch off your camera. If you want to have your camera on, feel free, honestly. Um, and if you could unmute yourself, and towards the end, we will have a Q&A session. So feel free to type in your questions in the chat room, or feel free to unmute yourself to just ask questions during the Q&A session. So, Jayce, would you like to start the panel discussions?
Sure, of course. Thank you so much, Tracy, for the kind introductions. And then, of course, first of all, good evening to everyone. Thank you for taking the time this evening to join us in this, I would say, quite a casual discussion sessions. So maybe let me just introduce a bit about myself before I introduce my guest. Okay, or before I start asking my guest questions, right? So basically, I'm actually the co-founder of CreativesAtWork. So together, CreativesAtWork, we are a media agency that helps our client to identify suitable freelancers to work on their project. But of course, we are not just limited to providing services to our client, right? We also started to create our own content. So and because of that, that's why we are all here today, right? So we're very happy to actually bring to you our first published book, right? Called The Business of Freelancing. And hence, this session is really for us to actually share more about freelancing, right? I'm very happy that Pamela and Wayne is joining us today to also share from their journey, right? As being a freelancers, right? What are some of the challenges that they have overcome. And most importantly, I guess for all of us here, right, is what is the glamours of hope, right? What does all of us want out of our career, whether you're freelancers, you're employed persons, what are our dreams? So I think these are some of the questions that we'll be discussing, tonight. And if let's say you have any specific questions, right, that you want to ask any one of us, please feel free to key in the chat comment there, right? Tracy will be helping us to monitor it, and then will actually alert us for the questions. So maybe before we start, right? Can I get Pamela to share a little bit about yourself, right, and your background, other than what Tracy has actually just mentioned? Do you have anything else you want to add on?
Hello everyone. Thank you for your invitation tonight. Yes, of course, I can give you a little bit of my background. The truth is that originally I'm coming from Greece. I'm here in Singapore the last year. The last decade, I was working as a digital marketeer. My studies are in different disciplines, international affairs, health, and business. So I have found my own path how to combine all of them. And in parallel, I also I'm doing what in this that I strongly believe that I'm really good at, a strong communicator and life coach. Right now I'm doing this both in parallel, and I'm really happy about it.
So Pamela, maybe share with our audiences a bit about what brought you to Singapore.
Well, actually, I came here because I wanted to have an MBA program. I wanted to attend in an MBA program. So right now I'm in the end of the program, and it was an amazing year, really challenging, because the truth is that nobody could imagine that this COVID situation would be so challenging. Yes, all of us, we learned a lot. The year was really demanding for different reasons. As long as we are safe, I believe that we can confront anything.
Right. The quiet time will pass, or rather not the quiet time, this period will pass soon. Hopefully sooner better than later. So maybe so Wayne, do you have
Hi there.
anything else you want to add on to what Tracy has just introduced you earlier?
Yeah. I started my career as a writer. I started my journey as a writer professionally. I can't remember how many years back. But I started in magazines. I used to write for lifestyle magazines, like what was then known as IS Magazine, and I even co-founded Singapore's very first, as far as we can tell, tattoo magazine way back. For the last 10 years, more or less, on and off, as a freelancer, or on and off as a full-timer, I've been working as a copywriter in marketing. I see at least one of my ex-colleagues out there in the audience. Hi, Timmy. And I've also, I mean, as Tracy said, there's the book. Became a published author in 2014 with Tales from a Tiny Room. Contributed to a bunch of magazines and anthologies since then. Ghost Maps is the podcast that I run with CreativesAtWork, CreativesAtWork's creative director, Carl Ong. I think he's in here somewhere. Hi, Carl. I hope you're watching. And yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. The long and convoluted journey of Wayne Ray so far.
Great, thank you so much. So I guess both of you have actually been freelancing for a while now, right? So in your journey as a freelancer, what is it like to be your own boss?
Pamela, do you want to go first, or shall I? Oh, okay, I go first. It's equal parts challenging and rewarding. I think the challenge comes in finding that balance in terms of, I have to keep the lights on, I have to pay my phone bill and stuff like that. But the rewarding part of things is that, you get to pick, a lot of the times you get to pick the jobs that you want to take to keep the lights on and to keep paying your phone bill. And, it's not always the case, but a lot of the times, you're lucky enough to work on stuff that you're genuinely passionate about, as opposed to working for a company where it's a 50-50 chance whether the projects you're going to work on are stuff that you really care about versus stuff that you just kind of have to do for the company to keep its lights on. So I think being my own boss, it's a unique situation, and it's strange, and it's wonderful, and it's fun, and it's sometimes a little bit stressful, but the stress is kind of worth it a lot of times.
Thank you. Thanks, Wayne. Pamela, How about you? Actually, I would like to ask Pamela, how long have you been freelancing actually?
Oh, well, this is a long ago. I decided, actually, I was really young when I decided that I wanted to do something by myself. But it didn't came, sometimes the motivation is different. I mean, I didn't select this path because, for example, I wanted this extra um, money. It wasn't for this reason. My motivation, it was mostly because I wanted to help other people. And since I was a child, I remember clearly myself always to be that person that someone wanted to share his thoughts or any challenges that they were facing. And for me, for some reason, it was really easy to guide them. Okay, here I have to admit that I'm coming from a family with a parent who was handicapped. My mom had a rare disease, so actually, for me, it was the best teacher ever because she taught me to be positive, to stay positive no matter what, and always to go back to the community and to give. So I believe this is how my journey started. Um, so yes, it is many years ago that I decided that I wanted to make something not only for me but for other people, and that's the path that I follow.
So when you make these decisions, what are some of the challenges that you face as your own boss? Because you kind of, fall into it fairly early, make the decision that you only want to work for yourself. But at that point in time, do you know what does it encompasses? Do you know what is freelancing?
Yes, for sure, for sure. First of all, you need to have a plan. I mean, to identify your passion. What area, what is your core competence? When you realize it, when you identify this, then you can start articulate the rest of things that yes, all these ingredients are necessary. I believe that all of us, we needed to know at least some basic information in order to start our own business. Otherwise, if you don't know, there are two ways. Either you ask the best people to help you, either you follow another path, another option, which is actually to start build yourself with all this information that might be needed. Financial, marketing, anything that can be useful for your journey.
I'm glad you say that, Pamela, because that is really the reason why we actually put together the book Business of Freelancing. To be frank, Business of Freelancing is really a book where it comprises not only just thought from ourselves, but really, all the sharings, all the learning that we have learned from our fellow freelancers, successful freelancers, not so successful ones, and then bring them together and combine them right into a, I would say, easy to read format, so that hopefully we can actually help people who are actually looking at to start this journey but not sure of how to do it, how to start, right? So at least, this so-called business of freelancing can serve as a guide to better help you, or rather, our readers, to make the decisions and to actually start on the right footing. Right. So actually, my next question is for Wayne. So Wayne, how since you have been freelancing for a while and in Singapore, so
Yes.
how has the freelancing landscape changed for you, especially because you are in the writer space, and then you managed to publish your book as well, right?
Yeah.
So how has the freelancing landscape changed for you over the years?
It's been, well, I think a lot of it has been a personal journey in that sense. I mean, the landscape is one thing, but I think a lot of it is also the personal journey of like you guys were talking about, when you become a freelancer, you have to be prepared for these kind of things. And for me, the first time I tried my hand at freelancing, I wasn't prepared. I wish I had the book, but this was many years ago. So now hopefully people can learn literally from the book that you guys have put out. This was many years ago, and I wasn't prepared financially. I wasn't prepared mentally, and over time, I'll alternate back and forth between working full time and working freelance. And every time I jump back in freelance, I come in with a little bit more knowledge. I think the way it's changed for me the most is that now I find myself having not the freedom but the balance to do jobs that, like I said earlier on, like jobs that are purely for paying the bills versus jobs that I'm passionate about. So I think the biggest change for me was it used to be predominantly copywriting work, and a lot of this last year it's been stuff like writing scripts for animation. It's been stuff like giving talks on how to be a writer. It's been stuff like the weirdest one that I've done so far was to write and read out a letter on video for the Singapore Writers Festival about the first movie I ever watched. So I got to tell the story about how my brother made me watch The Exorcist when I was 6 years old without telling me it was a horror movie. So that was bizarre and fun. And these are the kind of opportunities that, I mean, it's a mix of, I've learned this a lot over the years as a freelancer. It's a mix of putting in the work, knowing the right people, which doesn't necessarily mean, I have to make contacts with the very specific business people, but just knowing the right people who are good people and want to help. And a lot of it is also sometimes just dumb luck, honestly. So I think that's how it's changed for me, where I've had greater opportunities, but I've also learned the depth of what you need as a freelancer.
Right. Pamela, how about yourself? I mean, being, someone who is coming from outside of Singapore, now you are here in Singapore. What are the differences, in freelancing landscape that you observe, between these two countries?
Jayce, for sure. What I would say right from the beginning, I believe, okay, my clients are totally different. The cultural background is totally different. So for me is a new experience, but exactly because I have quite a large experience to speak and discuss with different people from different backgrounds. For me, it's easy. This is the first one. So my clients are different here, which is normal. And another point, it is that doing business in Singapore, believe me, is much easier than doing business in Greece. Because yes, right now with the economical crisis, it's not so easy. The legislation changes constantly around business. So you cannot have this stability and security you might need as a new freelancer. But yes, here things are quite clear. The steps are already defined quite clearly. So yes, this is what I would say from my part as a new experience as a freelancer here in Singapore.
Right. So we know, freelancing actually from CreativesAtWork's perspective, right? The freelancing landscape has actually changed a fair bit for us, right? I remember when we first started about 8 years ago, that's in 2012, right? When we actually go to our client and we actually say that, we have a pool of freelance creative resources for you to tap on, right? The first question that they ask us is, you mean those people are not your permanent hire? They don't work for you, right? And then the next question is it because they cannot get a full-time job? So it's all kind of I would say strange, right? Respond, right, to freelancers. But of course, 8 years, now fast forward 8 years later, I guess, and also, I mean, COVID is an unfortunate pandemic, right? Nobody wanted it to happen. But if you look at it on the flip side of it actually helped to accelerate, right? A lot of things, right? Including for freelancers as well. Because now most of our clients, in the past, our client would say, oh, I need the freelancers to still come into my office so that I can see him, he's working in front of me, and I know that he's doing his job, right? But now most of our clients are telling us, please don't ask the freelancers to come in because we are not in the office as well. So we all work from home. So I guess the climate has really changed in the sense that I think people kind of embrace, right, this kind of lifestyle, remote working, and actually, in fact, suddenly everyone realized that actually we don't have to come together just to do something creative, right? Even from wherever we are, right? So the collaborations, the transformation suddenly just kind of flourish, right? So I guess personally for me, I do see, I would say I'm quite hopeful, right, with regards to the future of freelancing, and the direction that it is actually going. So actually, I wanted to ask, right, considering the current situation, the COVID is probably going to be here for a while. It does seems like it's going to take us longer to recover than we first believe, right? So what are some tips and strategies that you have, for freelancers to keep ourselves, motivated, and to keep ourselves, I would say, to ensure that we are very much needed even after the pandemic?
Jayce, it's the question is addressed to me.
Well, you of Wayne.
Okay,
Look,
Yeah,
you can go
for
ahead if you
you.
want first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay. Well, look, for me, I think there are two tips that I would give for sure. First of all, yes, most of us can imagine that um, the number of freelancers right now is getting bigger. I think you can easily type these stats in web and you can find them. But if I had to give two tips, I believe that you should be patient and persistent. This is the two tips I would always give to someone who wants to follow a freelancer path, because uh, the first one, it has to do because you cannot have the great results that you are expecting right from the beginning. And persistence actually because I'm sure that at some point you will feel that, oh, do you know something? Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I cannot get what I was dreaming of from this action. But keep trying. This is what I would suggest. Keep trying, because it is like when we are climbing, a small mountain. Yes, you need to be persistent. Otherwise, no, you are not gonna succeed. This is these two tips that I believe that all the freelancers should follow.
Yeah. I think I definitely agree. I think in our experience dealing with freelancers, right, it actually takes as long as a year to really stabilize your freelance career. So for those who think that, oh, tomorrow I can start my freelance career just like that, I think you need to rethink again about the strategy, because it's really not so easy. It's not like you will get your first client just because you want to start your freelance career, right? So I think there's a lot of hard work, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of connections, there's a lot of effort that you need to put in place in order to make it a sustainable career. Of course, we are not talking about, freelancing for passions, right? Because different freelancers actually freelance for different reasons, which is, all fine, right? Because it's really up to you how you want to choose, your career choice, or rather, what how freelancing work for you, right? But for those who really want to focus on building out a career out of freelancing, right, then there's certain steps and there's certain awareness that they need to actually build up, in order to stabilize it and ensure that it can be a sustainable career, right? Just like Wayne said earlier on, right, it's like you need to pay your bills, so who's going to pay you to pay your bills? So Wayne, how about yourself? What are some of the tips and strategies that maybe you are currently doing, or you like to advise our fellow?
I actually just want to add on to what you said as well, where it's a case of coming into freelancing, and I think because of the pandemic, a lot of people are looking at freelancing as a bit more of a viable career choice. Yeah, it's not something that you can jump into, like say a full-time job and then like within the first month, like everything's stable and all that. There will be ups, there will be downs. And I think you just have to be prepared for that. It's a learning. There's a bit of a learning curve to it, and you're constantly learning, quite frankly, about how best to have a freelance career that suits you. Specifically for the pandemic, though, there is one tip that I do want to get across, which is get out of the house. Because I'm sure we'll talk about this later on in terms of looking after yourself mentally and physically. But a lot of my work revolves around writing, which means I'm at home. I'm either writing in the room or I'll step outside and write and everything like that. And the change of environment is nice, but I think you also have to factor in time to just get out of the space, because you're taking meetings here, you're doing your work here. You want to get out, get some fresh air, and just come back, and then you'll feel a bit more refreshed as opposed to just staying here. Because if you're working in an office, sometimes you might go out for a coffee break, or if you go out for like an extended lunch in the office and stuff like that, and that's the break that you need from work. I think if you've worked full time, you understand the importance of that. So I think that's something that you need to, especially now that you're working during this pandemic, you need to transport that idea to when you're working from home, which is, don't sit in front of your computer the whole day. Don't sit within the same four walls within the whole day. Get out of the house every once in a while.
I think that has to do with your work-life balance,
Yeah,
right? I think freelancer also need to have work-life balance.
Oh yeah, exactly. And yeah, I know we're going to be talking about this later on, but like that's especially important, I feel, during a pandemic as well.
Right. So what kind of services are the most in demand right now? So
I'll
yeah.
jump on this. I think there's always going to be a demand for writers of some stripe or some form. In terms of what's in demand, I think for me, I've been a little bit lucky this year, where a lot of the jobs that I've been taking on are specifically focused on storytelling. I know this will not always be the case. I think going back to the whole pandemic thing, I think because of the pandemic, because people have been locked at home, and there's that there's almost that shack wackiness of being stuck in this cabin fever. There's been a greater focus on the importance of storytelling. So a lot of the work that I've been doing as a writer has been focused on that storytelling aspect, whether it's giving classes about storytelling, whether it's giving talks about storytelling, or whether it's working as a writer specifically on projects that involve storytelling, like writing scripts for animation or stuff like that. So I think this year, I think in particular, ever since the pandemic, there's been that greater focus on storytelling. And the good news is I see that kind of seeping into other aspects of writing as well, stuff that wouldn't have placed as much value on storytelling before. You got your marketing copywriting and all that, and I think there's a slightly greater focus in the marketing copywriting where people are like, okay, let's not just talk about a brand, let's tell the brand story, let's tell the story of what this company wants to do, as opposed to this is what we do. It's let me tell you a story about what we do. So I think I've been seeing more of that in writing on a whole, especially since the pandemic started.
Right. Pamela, how about yourself? What do you think are some of the services, especially for freelancers, that would be in demand?
Look, Jayce, I believe that there are specific categories that for sure constantly the demand is high, like web developers and internet marketeers, programmers, for sure. But I believe that exactly because of COVID, there are also other categories like legal people that can give you legal advice, and video editing, for example, or people that can translate for you are upcoming categories that the demand is constantly higher and higher. So I believe that yes, if you can address what you are doing to a larger market, it is a nice idea to start your own business. But for sure, these categories are something that right now I believe that they are doing really well.
Yeah, so I think that's what we observe at CreativesAtWork as well. Since the start of the circuit breaker, right? Actually, to be frank, we are actually even more busy compared to we are, for the same quarter in the previous years. That's just because everyone suddenly now realize how important is social media, how important is their web presence, how important is it, because for them to actually get the attention, among all the others noises out there, they need to be able to tell better stories of themselves, and hence, anything digital, right? We have actually seen an increase in the demand for our clients, from your social media managers to your digital content producers, to even VR and AR, because people cannot go out, right? So, we have to transform the whole experience, of going through, say, a school tour, or a virtual tour, etc. Yeah, so I would say, if you are in a digital space, it looks like you are in the right space for at least, for the next couple of years. But here's my question, right? Because, as freelancers, in the past, right, or rather it could be still relevant, is, do you take a generalist approach or do you take a specialist approach, right? So do you actually go after providing services that is in demand, but that means to say there's a lot of competition, right? Versus finding a really, really niche skill sets that you have, and then you just service a very niche client, but then, right, you are actually able to become a specialist in the area that you're working with. So in these two aspects, generalist versus specialist, is there one way better than the others? Or, for freelancers, if they were to start, which way you advise them to be?
Jayce, if I had to answer this question, look, how I have articulate my thoughts about this. It has a lot to do with the industry you are in. I mean, a digital marketeer, he should have knowledge around different topics, for sure. But there are specific areas that your knowledge cannot be general. You need expertise. So I believe that if you want, for example, to do SEO, you should know well this area. You cannot just have general knowledge. It will not work quite well. So every time, yes, but this doesn't mean that you cannot good in different areas. If you have worked really hard around digital marketing, for example, yes, you can do 1, 2, or 3 categories really well, but you should identify your core competence. Otherwise, yes, it might be valuable, the flexibility that you can have, but always keep in mind that you should have one soldier that is going front. This is my
Right.
approach.
Yeah. Thank you, Pamela. How about you, Wayne? What do you
I-
think? Do you consider yourself a generalist or a specialist?
You would think that would be an easy question to answer. I think I'm gonna use the cop-out answer. I'm gonna say I'm a specialist in a couple of specific fields. So for me, it's a lot of my marketing copywriting was in the digital side of things. So I mean, in very broad terms, digital can be anything from EDM to social media. So for me, I think I specialize in the digital side of things, but I also make sure that I try to explore other aspects of marketing and other aspects of writing on a whole. so for me, yes, like Pamela was saying, have that one soldier that you sent to the front of the line during a war. But I think also bear in mind that you've got a whole army down there as well. And when you have the capabilities, when you have the bandwidth, trying to train up the other soldiers as well and see what the other soldiers can do, but always keep your super soldier, your Captain America in front to fight the war for you. Just see what else the other soldiers can do as well. So that's a bit of a cop-out answer, where I think I kind of just said be a specialist but also be a generalist as well. But I think that's it's less. I think if you want to, I guess it's also what you want to do. If for you, freelancing, like you said, there's two kinds of freelancers. There's the freelancers who are just paying the bills, and there's freelancers who have to pay the bills, but also they want to take on passion projects. If you want to just pay the bills, having that core competency, that's your thing. That's going to get you the jobs. That's going to get you the reputation you need to get even more jobs, and that's going to be your strength. But if you're doing this for two reasons, which is to pay the bills and to explore your passion as well, yes, priority one is to pay the bills, but also remember that you have to balance that off with stuff that's going to make you happy, and that might not necessarily pay as well as the main strength, but it's also something to explore. So yes, long story short, I basically answered both.
But that's a very good way of answering, right, Wayne? Like answer already, but not not really answering the question. But well, okay, but then just to jump into what you mentioned about passions, and your profession as a freelancer, right? So is there any tips that you can share? How do you actually combine your passion with your professions?
I think it's a case of understanding what that balance is. I mean, like I said, your passion projects, this isn't always the case, but your passion projects might not necessarily pay as much as the projects that are more for paying the bills. So, let's say, for example, the storytelling opportunities that I've had as a scriptwriter or stuff like that, that might not pay as much as, say, your traditional marketing copywriting, which, depending on the client you get, might not necessarily be as story focused. But you could look purely at the money side of things, but you also kind of have to balance that off with the passion side of things. And I suppose it's a case of finding that balance. You could, I have swung one way, I swung another way. And, from there, I sort of just find that equilibrium to find that center where it's a little bit of passion, it's a little bit of, just mercenary style work. And I think the main thing you have to keep in mind is that not all of us are going to be, from a writer standpoint, not all of us is going to be Stephen King or Neil Gaiman. You can't come into being your own boss and expecting, that you're going to be only working on passion projects. That's not always going to be the case. I think it's a question of finding how much of your passion you can bring into your profession and, working that to reach that right balance.
Pamela, how about yourself?
Jayce, well, if I think in general, this question is challenging because we might have many passions, different ones, and how we can combine them. But for sure, I would say that I believe we should do two things. First of all, to determine our unique value proposition. I mean, we need to spend some time to think what makes us different than our peers, our strengths, our passions, yes, our goals. All this is a combination. Cannot be. We cannot separately watch all of them. So always, I think this is the first one, and the second one is to find out how others see us. I believe it is really important because at the end of the day, you wanted to build a business, You cannot just follow only your passion. Your passion should have some kind of followers. I believe that it is really important to understand what kind of image other people has for you. I mean, uh, what what they believe you are good at, um, in which areas they believe that you are irreplaceable. It is, it is really nice when other people can tell you, do you know something? You are really good at it. You can be motivated, really motivated. And for sure, you can understand, do you know something? I really needed someone to tell me, to make it clear to me that I was good at it. Maybe you know it, but maybe you don't, you are not so sure, because all of us feeling might feel a little bit insecure sometimes. So I believe that these two, it is a good strategy to combine your passion and what you want to do as a business.
Yeah, I'm glad. Thank you, Pamela, for sharing. I'm glad you shared this because in our book, right, we did actually talk a little bit about this. Like, how do you decide, right, what service you should provide, right? And of course, other strategies and I would say ways for you to find out. So I'm glad you actually mentioned, and we have a couple of points in our book as well. So in that sense, I guess we are kind of aligned.
Great.
Right. I just want to throw out to the audience. So if let's say you have any question for us, right, please feel free to type into the chat below. We'll be happy. I'm sure Wayne and Pamela will be happy to share with you more about their experience and their thought. But I just like to take this opportunity to actually respond to one question that came in through the chat from CK, right? So he said, dear Jayce, understand that you have been involved in a number of notable private and public sector creative projects. What is your most memorable collaboration experience with freelancers in those projects? And what should freelancers do to make sure such collaborations are a success? Wow. Okay. So maybe I go first. And then after that, Wayne and Pamela, you can share with us, right? What is that most memorable collaboration experience that you have with your fellow freelancers in the past years that you have? So personally at CreativesAtWork, we always work with freelancers, right? Because that's what we do. We create teams for our clients. We manage the team from conceptualization all the way to delivery, to deliverables. So most of the project are memorable, but if there's one that I must identify, right, then I think the one that we are very grateful that we have the I would say opportunity is really our digital campaign called Stories. So I'm not sure how many of you have heard about the Stories, which is a digital campaign, right, that looks at identifying and selecting up to 15 independent content creators to actually tell positive impact stories about Singapore. The reason why it's memorable for me, right, of course, first, the collaboration between 15 independent filmmakers, and then each one of them bring their own freelancers, and you can imagine, right, that's like really a big project. But the reason why it was really memorable was because, right, the idea, right, was actually brought to us by a freelancer. So it was like a casual session like this. We were just chatting. Of course, most of the time we were complaining, about how people don't understand us. The clients doesn't care about, our passions and things like that. But then at the end of the day, we finally conclude to say, hey, then why don't we actually just create something, right? And just do it the way that we wanted to do it. So, and hence, the project took us 3 years in the making, working with our talented pool of closer partners, freelancers who believe in this concept about using media as a positive force, right? And use media for the change, to do good, right? In a way. So I think that particular project, although it involved at least 150 freelancers, right? It took us 9 months, right? To run the project from the start all the way to conclude. Actually, we just concluded it as in finished releasing the 16 stories, right? Just a couple of, I think just last month. right? So for those of you who want to actually see, short films, right, or short stories, that has a strong message, just need to go up to our website, which is still now at www.stories.video, to actually look at some of the work done by our independent content creators, which we are actually very proud of. Many of them has actually went on to actually win awards as well. Yeah, so that is just one. So I guess the things I'm trying to say here, right, is that I do see collaboration as a very important part of a freelance journey, right? I think this brings back to what Wayne said, right? You send one soldier out, but you will actually needs to have many soldiers marching alongside with you, or at least behind you, and you need to know that they are at least watching your back, right? So I think we are seeing more and more freelancers also coming together, right, to form teams, right? There may be one core freelancers that is actually marching ahead, right? But they do need the support from their fellow freelancers as well. This is not only just get a job, but also to actually provide more value to the clients as well. Yeah. So Wayne, is there any memorable project that you have collaborated with your freelancer?
I have two. Uh, I know that's me being extra greedy and mentioning two, but I have two. One that's more of a paying job where it's more focused on paying the bills, and another one that's very much a passion project as well. The paying job, I think this year specifically, it was the first time I ever wrote a script for animation. So for me, that was quite fun because I as a writer, I've always believed that collaboration is very important. Whether you're working with a designer for your book, or whether you're working on a comic with an artist, or whatever it is, writing, a lot of people get this idea that writing is a very insular and very lonely, and you're hunched over in a dark room writing stuff. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of writing is very collaborative. So the chance to write for animation was interesting because then you're working with artists, not just in terms of, say, character design in the animation, but you're also working to their strengths as well. Like what can the animators do? What seems feasible for the animators to do under certain budgets, and then you adjust your script accordingly to fit the budgets, to fit the capabilities of the animation team, the strengths of the animation team as well. So it was a very positive learning experience, I felt. And I was very lucky to work with people. I think at least one of the animators or illustrators is somewhere in here as well. I'm not just saying this because you're here, but it was a very positive experience for me as well. The ongoing passion project is, again, I'm not just saying this because he's here. Kyle, working with Kyle on Ghost Maps, I think that's rewarding. That's a rewarding collaboration, more from an emotional standpoint, because our mission has always been to tell good stories. And yes, it's ghost stories, but it's ghost stories that we feel are very much a part of our Southeast Asian culture. So for us, we're not just telling horror stories, we're keeping a part of our Southeast Asian culture and our heritage alive, no pun intended, because it's ghost stories. So for me, that's very important as well. That's a very important collaboration because you can't just tell these stories just as written words, because we specifically chose podcasts because then there's that oral tradition of telling ghost stories. So it's very much a collaboration between me and Kyle, who does the editing, who does the directing of the podcast, as well as our voice talent and a whole bunch of other people that help make these stories possible and heard by as many people as possible. So those are my two answers for paying the bills job and passion project as well.
Right, Pamela, how about yourself? What is the most memorable collaboration project?
Well, first of all, I have to admit something. If you want to follow life coaching as a path, collaboration and synergies is one of the most important lessons that you should follow. You cannot be alone. No one stands alone. Collaboration is one of the basic principles you should have. So if I had to choose only one, I would say that for sure I had a really positive experience when I wanted to help some people and make them realize that there are also other people with the same issues, I don't use, I never use the word problem, because a problem cannot be solved. An issue can. So with different issues, but I talked with some fellow professionals, and we created a small program for these people, where they could actually do, because okay, my coaching is more based in neuro-linguistic programming. So actually your brain should start reacting to the food that you are giving to it. So actually we designed a different kind of exercise based in their needs, and it was really nice, the result, because all these people came back to us telling that, do you know something, after the session that we had all together with this exercise that all of us actually we designed all together, um, it was amazing, because 10 days after we could realize what was different during these 10 days. So for us, it was really important, because we could see the results. We could see how we could help these people. And not only me, also other people, that they are doing extremely well, this professional.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, thank you, Pamela. I'm glad you bring out the collaboration. So I think that was CK's second question as well. What should freelancers do to make sure that such collaboration are a success? Is there like certain actions or certain attitudes that a freelancer should have to ensure collaborations is a success? What do you think?
I believe that first of all, you should respect all of the people that you are collaborating. Your attitude cannot be I'm better than you. We are all equal. We are coming from different backgrounds, and we have a lot of things that we can share and we can learn from each other. So I believe this is the most important value you should have, and you should recognize if you wanted to have a really productive collaboration.
Wayne, how about you? What do you think are the ingredients that needs to go in to ensure that the collaboration is a success?
I 100% agree with Pamela. I think that idea of respecting your collaborators and appreciating the value that they bring to a project, that's very important. And I don't think like that can't be said enough. I feel like that's something that people need to understand. I think you also need to be, at least from a writer's standpoint, I think you need to be very open to ideas. People always ask me, oh, how do you decide whether a project is going to be a book, or it's going to be a comic, or it's going to be a short film? How do you decide that? And my response is always, well, if you want something to be exactly like how you have it in your head, and you don't want anybody to change it, or as much as possible, write a book. If you want to explore how your own ideas, and this could work beyond just traditional storytelling means like comics and movies and stuff like that, but it could also work in copywriting, and it could also work in all kinds of writing. If you want to see how far your ideas can grow beyond your own understanding of your ideas, work with collaborators. I've had, whether it's advertising, whether it's books, whether it's comics, whether it's films, whatever it is I've worked on, I've always been wonderfully and pleasantly surprised by how a small idea I've had can grow, whether you're working with an artist, with a director, with anybody really. And don't silo yourself. Good ideas come from everywhere. So especially in marketing, there's this very territorial mentality of, oh yeah, the creatives come up with the ideas and the suits do this, and never the twain shall meet. I don't think that's fair. I've seen some really good ideas come up from suits. I've seen some really good ideas come up from project managers, from account directors, and it's not specifically a creative department's role, because at the end of the day, you're working you're working with all these people, and it should be a collaboration, and you should be open to these ideas. So yeah, I think that's the most important aspect for me, at least from a writer standpoint, as a collaborator, to just always be open to ideas wherever they may come from.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think to add on, right, is it's really about, I think, the sharing the common vision, right? I think a lot of times, when we see project fail, or rather I would say fall apart, right, was because the direction was not clearly defined, one, or second, not everyone is moving towards the same directions, right? But then, we will see amazing results, right? If everyone involved, we know, what we have in mind, what's the goal, what's the objective, and we actually march on together. I think that, even though at the end, right, the result may not be what we want, but I guess it's also sometimes the journey, right? It may not be the ultimate goal, right? But the journey of, working together collaboratively, everybody, has their input and already do their best, right? So I guess that's probably the most beautiful part of it. So we have a question from Geraldine as well. Right. I'm cautious about the time, so maybe we'll just take two more questions, and then and then after that, we could actually wrap up. But of course, feel free to actually still approach any one of us through LinkedIn, through social media, or just drop us an email. Right. So from Geraldine is, the artist versus designers seems like it's best to do both hand in hand. Right. How do you manage this together while learning to level up for your skill set? Well, I guess this question is a little bit of both, right? I guess it's trying to say, Geraldine, correct me if I'm wrong, if I understood your question wrongly, right? So are you saying that, you want to retain the freedom to create, but yet, sometimes you are constrained by the client's brief, right? So how do you manage between, still having your freedom to create and yet still able to meet the need of your clients, right? And while learning to level out your skill sets in this. So Wayne, I think you always take creative brief, right? Working in the agency. So how do you manage, from having your freedom to suggest whatever ideas that you have? So this is actually, okay, I did a bit off the question, but I thought this was quite interesting, right? Because in our last 8 years, when we actually meet of, there's so many clients, right? The clients come in different shape and sizes, right? And different expectations. So, so one of the clients will always, we have met a couple, right? We always say, create me the most viral content, right? I want to have the most, creative campaign that no one has ever done it before. And then after that, when you actually suggest something that is, you probably thought that, hey, it's something that might work. And then the client say, do you have any case study for it? Like, you ask for innovative out of the box, and then suddenly you ask me, do I have a case study for it? I guess, yeah. Sorry, Wayne.
No. You and I run the risk of this turning into a therapy session more than anything else. I think my answer for this, and what I found over time, is you need to, and it goes back to what you were saying, Jayce, about working towards a common goal. I think it's a case of seeing what the client's goal is, and you may not get that immediately from the brief, but like you were saying, like they'll ask for viral content. And then they'll say, oh, okay, you give us a good idea, but can you show us a case study? And so from there, you kind of understand the client's mentality better, where it's a case of, yeah, they may want something creative, but they want something creative that works within a certain sandbox. So I think it's a case of managing your expectations of what the client wants. If you get the rare client that says, go nuts, we don't care, just do what you do and do it as well as you can, that's great. That's a rarity. So I think when you when you're dealing with clients, I think it's always important. And this does go back to the idea of collaboration, because collaboration is not just an internal thing within an agency or within the project managers and the creatives. It's also a collaboration with your clients. At the end of the day, they've commissioned you and they want like certain KPIs met. Now, whether those KPIs align with you going nuts on a project or you having creative freedom on a project, that really does depend on client from client to client. So I think that's the most important thing. When you start working with a client, that first impression will give you a rough idea of what they want. During the initial phase, push it a little bit so that you test your waters. And then when you figure out how far they're willing to go, then manage your own expectations and work within the confines of what they're looking for. Because at the end of the day, they did hire you to create a campaign for their brand, or to create whatever it is for their brand. So you work towards their vision and just see how much you can play within that sandbox.
Right. Pamela, do you have anything to add on to this?
Really quickly, because I understand the time is limited, I would say for sure that I have faced this kind of situation both as a marketeer and also sometimes as a mentor. Look, what you can do for sure is to discuss openly your thoughts. This is what I can do as a mentor and as a coach. But as a marketeer, sometimes I totally agree with Wayne. You should find a balance between what you really know well and believe it's gonna be really important for your client, and what they are looking for. Only I want to add only this, that there was a case in the past as a marketeer where I kept a small budget because I let the client to do what actually he wanted. And when he came back, he told me, do you know something? I don't have the results I wanted. And I answered, yes, I know. I knew it right from the beginning. But I have kept this for this moment. So now we can use it. And he was really happy. And yes, you should leave people to make mistakes, and also you have this space to make mistakes. So go ahead.
Right. Thank you so much. Okay. So I'm cautious of the time. I just thought that there's 2 more questions left. We might as well just answer it. Or just to share our thought with the two last questions. But before we go on to Carl, I will close the session with Carl's questions. But before we go to Carl, I want to actually reply Kaden, right? And Kaden, thank you so much for getting our book. I hope you enjoy it. So Kaden's question is a question that's a bit technical at this juncture. Your book mentioned it's good to have a tax consultant to advise on the tax deductions we can enjoy for our business. From your interactions with freelancers, what are the common tax deductions that rookie freelancers miss out in their first year, right? Okay, so because this is factual questions, so I will just answer it very quickly. So with regards to taxes, right, it really depends on the country that you're operating from and you're operating in. I think in Singapore, we are quite fortunate. Our tax structure are fairly straightforward, right? And it's actually, a lot of informations are available. You just need to go to IRA's website, right? So, so if let's say you're just starting out, there's probably no need for you to get a tax consultant, right? The tax consultant will come in handy when you're making a lot of money and you doesn't know how to manage it, right? But if let's say you're just starting out, right, then you need to understand, right, your I would say operating entity. Are you operating as an individual, as a self-employed, or are you operating under a company structure? So a company structure could be sole proprietor, private limited, LLP, LLC. So each one of them does have I would say different pros and cons, right? And all those will be very clear. You can just need to check under ACRA, right? Or even IRAS for some of the benefit. But very quickly, a lot of the tax deductions that I think young freelancers tend to actually neglected, right? Is that because if you are registered, even as a self-employed, you're running a business. So you do have business costs, right? So for example, like, your phone bill, right? Is meant for receiving calls from your business, right? Those are your cost of business expenses. So a lot of time, a lot of the young freelancers probably just declare on how much revenue they make, but forgetting that they actually have a lot of this kind of operating costs that they have actually incurred. So immediately those can actually offset your revenue, so that your tax, the final amount for liable for tax is actually much lower, as you know it. So this is actually one very straightforward advice, right, that we would give to younger freelancers. But you should take a look at other tax deductible if you are self-employed, because there are actually others, like for example insurance, right? If you purchase insurance, those can protect for your business, of course, right? Those are actually tax deductible as well. Yeah. So I just want to close with the last questions, right, very quickly from Carl. So Carl actually asked, let me see, I'm just trying to look for the question. So Carl asked a question, right? What do you think is the most important value that a freelancer must have? Wow, sounds like a great question to close off the evening. So what do you think is the most important value that a freelancers must have? Pamela, you want to go first, or Wayne, you want to go first?
Yeah, for sure. I would say for sure, be open-minded and flexible. These two, I believe it is the most important thing that you should keep in your mind.
Just to almost add on to what Pamela was saying, I think interpersonal skills. I think if you can communicate better with people, then that makes the collaboration easier. Try and like what Pamela said, be open-minded and try to understand other people's point of view as well. Yeah.
So for me, I just like to add on to what Pamela and Wayne say, which is all correct, but just add on to it. I think Geraldine actually brought up a very good point with regards to upskilling and retraining. So I think that is the, how should I say, a continuous process, for a self-employed, for freelancers. If you want to increase your value, if you want to, even just, increase your fee, for example, right? Then you need to constantly increase your value and reevaluate whether your skill is really relevant, not only just for now, but also for future, right? Is the world going to be the same in the next 3 years, 5 years, right? If it's not, how can you pivot yourself? How do you change? So all these are actually important skill sets. Just for businesses as well, right? And if you are a freelancer, you should see it as running your own business. So all this will be important as well. All right, great. Thank you so much. Thanks, Pamela. Thanks, Wayne. And thank you to all our participants. Yeah, Tracy, do I hand it back to you?
Sure. Thank you, guys. It was such a great evening. And I hope every one of you have enjoyed this webinar. And if you have any questions, or if you want to connect with any of our speakers tonight, feel free to add them on LinkedIn. And also, you can also, for Jayce, you can go to her company website, CreativesAtWork. So thank you very much again, and have a great week. And yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Tracy, do you want to share with them about the 20% discount? I think World Scientific has very kindly given the 20% discount on the book, right?
Yes, sorry, yes. And I think you can actually find it with the invitation that we sent to you. So yes, there you go.
Oh, there we go.
So you can go and visit this website here on Kindle, or just the web link that we have here. I believe is actually on the invitation that we sent you as well. So yeah, so thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting us, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye, guys.
bye.
Thanks, Jayce. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.